Hey, welcome back. Okay, so as promised, I'm going to take you through 10 of my kind of go-to Drupal modules, my favorite Drupal modules, the ones that I tend to install quite frequently on Drupal sites, on the Drupal sites that I work on. This is by no means a definitive list. You really, as I mentioned in previous screencasts, you really need to let the purpose of your Drupal site drive your decision to as to which modules you're going to install. Okay, so not all of these modules will necessarily relate to the type of Drupal site that you're building, but it's just these are just 10 kind of examples of really what I believe are really good Drupal modules, and hopefully this will also give you a sense of the variety of Drupal modules that are out there, contributor modules, and also kind of the variety of things you can get modules to do on a Drupal site. So let's get started. One of the first things you might notice here is that this module page actually looks different than it does before. What I've done is I've installed all these 10 modules on our demo site so that I can walk through this with you. And this is because I actually have a module installed that changes the look of this. It's called Module Filter. It's a fantastic little module. And basically the purpose for this module is that you probably noticed if you saw in the previous screencast, whenever I installed a new module, I would have to scroll all the way down to the bottom. And yeah, that core field, the core section would collapse, but it was still a whole bunch of scrolling. That's because if you install a lot of modules, that whole list, the modules page, can become quite unwieldy. And so all this is simply just a module that filters all of your installed modules into this nice little interface. And here we can actually scroll over and just switch to, use this tabbing system to switch to all the different categories of modules that we have installed on our Drupal site. And even though this doesn't necessarily add new functionality to your site from the viewer's perspective or from the visitor's perspective, but trust me, it makes your life a lot simpler. It also means that I can quickly filter through here. I can let's say I'm interested in finding that, let's see, that SoundCloud filter. I can just type that in here, and this just brings me straight through to the it filters it down to just the SoundCloud field module that I'd installed in the previous screencast. So it's just a really handy little admin module that I like to install. This tends to be one of the first modules that I installed on my Drupal sites. Another module that I install is called the administration menu. And the reason I install this, you might notice that this toolbar, it looks very similar to the previous toolbar, but what it is it's kind of like a toolbar plus, where all of the different functions that are available under each of these particular menus are available to you as drop-down menus. So if you remember in the past, if we wanted to go to structure, we actually had to click on the structure box here, or the structure menu, to get to this page with blocks, content, menus. This just saves you that click. This basically means that I can just go to structure and I can go straight through to content types, and look, I can even go here and I can edit song, and I can go manage the fields and down to, look at that, I can even go all the way to there. So that just saves me a whole bunch of clicking, and so that's why I like it. I like it so much that I actually prefer using this. I don't bother with shortcuts anymore. I just know that, say for example, to run cron, I'm just going to go to let's see, system right here, configuration system, and just click cron, and then that's just a one-click thing to run cron on my site. So I find this really, really handy to have. It's very easy to install, and that's called administration menu. And we see here it is right here under administration. This is the section. These are the modules that are associated. Sometimes when you install a module, it actually gives you a couple different things kind of packaged up together. So don't let that throw you. Okay, one of the other modules that I install on every single one of my sites, Path Auto. We've seen this already, but just as a reminder, if we want to take a look at it, that's actually under the other section right here, and here it is enabled right here. And if you remember, we also had to install Token to get that to work at the same time too. And Path Auto, all that does is it just basically provides this mechanism for modules to automatically generate aliases for that content. So whenever we create a new article, let's say we call the article new web video coming soon, it automatically makes, rather than the address being Drupal/node/ blah blah blah, it just gives it this nice clean path like that's automatically generated, and that just saves you a step. It's really quite nice. Okay, one of the other modules that we installed was the SoundCloud field, and there's a whole category, there's a whole bunch of different modules that allow you to add new field types to your content types. One of the ones I like to use, here's just one example, it's called HMS field. This is where it is right here. By the way, all these links will be in the show notes, so they'll all be accessible to you. HMS field basically allows you, it provides a new field so that if you, let's say you wanted to store information or content as hours, minutes, and seconds, okay, you can do that. And you might be thinking, why would I want that? Well, remember when it comes to our content here, our content types, one of them was song. And, some important information about our song would be the length of the song. I probably want to know that, my song, Roses Are Red, happens to be 3 minutes and 12 seconds long. And so by installing this HMS field, this would provide a new field type so that I could create a new field for the song content type. There, we'll just see it right here, content type song right here. I could go to manage fields, and here are the current fields. I could add a new one called length, song length, and I could choose the field type could be HMS, and then that would allow me to enter the information as like the song length as actual like minutes and seconds. And you might be thinking, what's the big deal? Why can't I just use integers or decimals or something? Well, because that's not how we think about songs, right? Like you could use a decimal formula, or you could use a decimal field type for that, but do you really think of things as songs as being 3.3 seconds? Like that's not actually 3.5, not 3.5 seconds, 3.5 minutes. 3.5 minutes is not, it's 3.5 minutes is actually 3 minutes and 30 seconds, right? So, and that would be really nice. Like you could imagine how that one might be handy if I'm searching for songs that are between 3 minutes and 3.5 minutes long. I would like to have the information encoded in my database in a way that allows me to actually track that information. Sorry, that's a long explanation for what is actually a very, very simple module. And of course, you can imagine there's lots of different field modules available. You can add field types like a link field type, so that you can add URLs like links. You could add an email content or field type. You could add, what else is there? There's all sorts of different ones. A date. You could allow people to upload information about and attach dates to them, as a field. So there's lots of different options there. But the HMS one is, in particular, it's relevant to the type of website we were building here, where we had song contents and we wanted to track. It would be reasonable to want to track the length of the song. And as I mentioned you can have other things like email fields and link fields. And speaking of links fields, external links is a really nice module that I like to install, and we'll find it down here under the user interface section. And all this does is that it determines the behavior and appearance for any external links. And you see it in action right here. Okay, what this does, you can select the settings for this. You would go under, where is it? I believe it's under, you would just click the configure button here to configure how it works. But what it does is that any external link, any link that points outside of your website, and here, if you look in the lower left-hand corner, you see what the destination is. You see this is actually pointing outside of our domain, outside of the robobunnyattack.com domain. It's pointing to the Drupal.org website instead. And so as a result, this module, this external links module, adds this little symbol right here, this nice little symbol, just to kind of as a little visual cue to any user or any site visitor that, hey, if you click on this, it's going to take you outside of this current site. So it's just a nice little user interface tweak. If you happen to link to an email address, it will add a little email icon next to it, which is also really sharp. And that's automatic. That's automatic throughout your entire site. You don't need to do anything other than just enable this module. You could even configure it, and this is your choice, but if you wanted to set it up so that when users click on external links, those links get forced into a new tab, you could set it up to do that as well. But that's completely up to you, and you would configure that through right here. So there's an example of a simple but really practical module you could add to your Drupal site. Okay, here's another one called follow. And all this does, let me go find it. I believe it's under, oh, where would that be? Sharing, other. It's under other right here. All this does is it just adds site-wide and per user links to social network profiles. And that would be available to you as a block. You could just add a block to your content and it would just have, you know, like follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. I'm sure you've seen this on websites before. So you could configure that and you've got this nice little like block that just, you know, sends, that just has the icons and then just, you know, that's done automatically for you. So that's really quite nice. Speaking of social media and stuff, you could add a share this module. This is slightly more complex. Here it is right here. All this does is it adds a widget to nodes on your site. And again, you can configure it to control where this widget shows up. But basically where you could configure it so that every, say, article gets a bunch of links at the bottom where people can share it outside, like on Twitter or Facebook, that sort of thing. I'm sure you've seen this. This is very, very common on websites. So that's just a module. You just install the share this module, configure it the way you want to show up on, specify what content you want that to be available on, and then you just hit, you know, you just enable it, and then all of that specified, all that content you specified will have the share this widget added to the bottom to it automatically. So you don't need to do it individually. It's just automatically there. Finally, frequently asked questions is a really nice module as well too. We see it again under the other section right here. And this just basically allows you to add an FAQ section to your site. It creates a page, but it also creates individual questions. You can have individual questions and answers, and you can, here's an example of it sort of in action here, and you can configure the behavior of that so that maybe if you click on a question it just drops down automatically, or maybe you click on a question and it opens it up. And any sort of site that you're building where people, you know, where you're expecting people to have questions about the information, you know, a frequently asked questions page is really nice to have, and this allows you to create that and keep it updated really, really easily. I would say that this is much nicer than just having a page called frequently asked questions, because as your frequently asked questions evolve over time, you can move them around, you can kind of drag and drop. It's got a nice interface, you can drag and drop them, you can edit the answers to questions, you can tweak things, and it's just a really nice interface to do that. So I find that that's a really handy module to have. There's tons of other modules too. Two other really, really important modules that I don't have installed on here, but I want to show you, okay, is called the Views module and the Display Suite module. And that brings us up to a total of 10 modules, 9th and 10th module here that I wanted to talk about today. The reason I don't have them installed is that they're kind of big modules, and they sort of are pretty demanding in terms of asking your server to handle this. And I mean, they are very important modules. And I'd say probably most Drupal site I've ever built I've included the Views module, and a lot of them I've used the Display Suite module on as well too. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to install a module unless you know for a fact you're going to use it. Simply because it does tend to complicate things, and it sort of junks up the server a bit. So you want to keep things as lean as possible. But eventually you are going to be ready to install the Views module. It is a big module. It's hard to explain what it does without really seeing it in action, but I do like what they've put here. They basically, in the description, they try to give some user case scenarios where they say you need views if you like the default front page view, but you find you want to sort it differently. Okay. Or you like the default taxonomy view, but you want to sort it differently, for example, alphabetically. We don't know what tracker is yet, but maybe you like the idea of the articles, but it doesn't display articles the way you want. Okay. Or maybe you want a way to display a block with the 5 most recent posts of some particular type. Okay, all sorts of different things. This is just, and they say here, views can do a lot more than that, but those are some of the obvious uses of views. The best description I can think of is that it allows you to make lists of content, and really rich lists of content, okay? And it allows you to organize that and create pages that pull content from your database and display it in really any way you want to. Okay, you could even create. So in our case, because we were putting together this music library for our band website, you could use views to create a list of all the songs. Okay, and maybe it would be displayed in a tabular format. Okay, because the way that views can spit out this content is any way you want. It could spit it out just as a page. It could spit it out as a table. It can spit it out any different way. So maybe you want to end up with a table that shows you like all the songs in your database and sorted by title, by performer, by length, maybe, right? Because we could install that HMS field, maybe with a little SoundCloud player, anything like that, and have it all show up in a table. And then maybe you could even set it up so that your site viewers could sort it. They could sort it however they want, or maybe they could filter it. Maybe they could filter it by genre. So they'd use a little drop-down menu to filter, okay, only show me the pop songs, and then it would automatically, dynamically generate this new display. Um, I, it's hard to explain, but hopefully that has given you a few clues as to how that works. It is a big module. I'm not going to lie to you. It's kind of complicated. It took me a while to wrap my head around it. I am no, and I fully admit I am by no means an expert of using this. I just know enough to do some damage. But someone who is an expert is Johan Falk over at NodeOne, who is just awesome and has created this amazing learning series all about views. Look at this, and these are all screencasts, and he calls it Taming the Beast, Learn Views with NodeOne. This is an incredible screencast series, and I cannot emphasize, if you're serious about learning how to use Drupal, sooner or later you're gonna have to learn views, and this is really the best resource I can possibly recommend for learning how views works, what it is, how you use it, how you configure it, because it's a great big honkin' module and it does so much. And it's configuring it is not just a question of clicking a couple boxes. You really need to know what you're doing. So I'm not saying that to discourage you by any means. It is a really, really handy module, but it's like worth its own screencast series in and of itself. So if you are serious about Drupal, get to know views. Once you're comfortable with the basics, get to know views, and definitely watch Johan's learning series here because it is just amazing. Another module that I really, really like as well too is Display Suite. And Display Suite, again, I don't have it installed on my current demo site right now, but Display Suite is basically a way to give you even more control over the way your fields and your content is displayed for each article or post or content type. And I think I kind of alluded to this earlier when we were playing around with, if I show you here under structure content types, remember when we were playing around with the managing the display of the songs, and we were changing the order of where we wanted the cover art to appear above the lyrics or blah, blah, blah. There's some basic functionality there, but you probably realize that it's kind of limiting, okay? You do have to know how that works before you can go beyond that. But, what if I wanted to embed the image or have the text flow around it or do cool things like that? Display Suite is kind of like, it's that way to control the way your fields show up on the page, okay? And in what context and in what order and all that stuff. But it's kind of like it's managed display on crack is really why I don't know a better way to describe it. It's just amazing. It's really, really cool. And there is a really awesome screencast series again here that walks you through how to use Display Suite. It's not quite as complicated as views, but it's still kind of a beast. And so again, if you want to get serious about using Display Suite to manage the look of your content and in what order all the fields show up on the page, then you'll want to install Display Suite and then work your way through these amazing screencasts tutorials. It's a really awesome series, and I'm very thankful to Christoph for putting together this series and publishing it on YouTube. It's really, really quite cool. So yay. Awesome when people put together these screencast tutorials. It's nice that we can share our knowledge that way. So I'm really impressed. I've learned so much from both of these, and I continue to learn more about this stuff as I go. Because Drupal's a great big, a great big program with a whole bunch of possibilities. It's easy to start using, but you can go so deep into it. It's really cool. So that was kind of an overview of 10 really great modules. There's tons more, and not all these modules will be what you need for your site, but hopefully this gives you sort of an understanding of some of the basic stuff you can do with modules and how it can extend your site and all the cool new things you can add to your site. I'm gonna leave modules at that. There's so much more you could talk about, but hopefully that's enough to get you started and just allow you to get in there and start experimenting with modules. In the next set of screencasts, I'm going to talk to you about how you can change the appearance of your site, because you're probably dying to figure out how the heck can we actually change the look of our site, because we are so sick of looking at this default Bartik look here. This is like, okay, we've been staring at this for this entire screencast tutorial series. I think it's time to start changing that up a bit. So in the next screencast tutorial, we're going to talk about how we can change themes, what a theme is, and how we go about changing and customizing our themes. So stick around. I will see you then. Thank you so much for watching.